Welcome to the True Joy Revolution. I am so excited that you're here. I'm your host, Katerina Kormas, mindset and success coach for women who are ready to make the switch to living life their own way. Each week, I'll be bringing you inspiring conversations with women who have courageously stepped out of their comfort zone, overcame their fear, took bold action, and embarked on a new journey to transform their lives. This is where you get inspired to connect to who you truly are, to live authentically, stay true to your dreams, and embark on the adventure that you were born to take. This is where the True Joy Revolution begins. Hi, y'all. Welcome to the True Joy Revolution. I am so excited that you're here, and I'm super excited to introduce you to Julie Watson. She's a health and life coach and also the author of a brand new book coming out called True Health. And I love Julie's story. I love Julie. Julie has this great energy. You're going to love listening to her. She has such a beautiful spirit. And I love how she really went from all these fears and overcoming these fears to having this beautiful life and being more at peace with herself, more excited about what's coming her way, and open to new opportunities. So Julie, welcome. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So Julie and I met a few months ago, probably around 6 months ago. And I admire just even in that 6 months, how far you've come, what you've accomplished. So tell us a little bit about, because you have some stuff to celebrate right now.
I do. Yeah. Well, number one celebration is, as you mentioned, I am an author. Officially, I will have my first book available early October. And so very excited about that. I just got the physical copies in the mail last week. So I'll even have a bookmark because I was reading it myself. Get some good stuff in there. But this is what it looks like, True Health, a woman's guide to loving her body, loving her life, and loving her God. So that is definitely a celebration. But I think probably the thing I'm happiest about is I just feel like I'm in a really good place right now. I finally am listening to God's voice, growing in my relationship with Him. And I feel like He has me in such a good place right now. And so I'm celebrating that. And that's part of what's brought me to, writing the book, obviously. And also just celebrating that I got married in 2016, and I just feel like our family is, meshing. We have 5 children between us that we brought into this marriage. And so I just feel like that's in a really good place too. So I want to celebrate that.
Wow, that is a lot.
Yep. Life keeps going.
Yeah, it does. But I need to bring this up because I love how you said this is your first book. Like you're
yes.
writing more.
Oh yes. Yep. I'm already getting ideas for book number 2. So I'm really excited about that.
Wow. So did you always dream of being an author?
I have wanted to write for a really long time. I remember somebody asking me, I think it was back in like 2005, if money were no object, what would you do? And I was like, I'd be a writer. And it took me all of this time. Finally, in 2017, I hunkered down and wrote this book. So yeah, something that's been on my heart for a long time.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool that you had the idea, and you finally got a chance to get that inspiration and grew to write the book. It's really cool. Right. So yeah. Your life is pretty cool right now.
It is. I feel like I'm on one of the mountaintops. So I'm going to enjoy it before the next valley hits.
Yeah, but I think there's probably so much from your journey that has led to this point. So where would you think your journey began to get you to where you are now?
Okay, good question. I can definitely see, moments even, in childhood where God was maybe teaching me lessons and things that I went through then that have helped me to become the person that I am today. But I think probably the biggest thing that happened in my life that really changed the trajectory of my life was losing my first husband to cancer in 2011. Uh, Definitely when something like that happens, you stop and take inventory and wonder, okay, God, now where am I going? So that definitely had a big impact on my story and where I am now. And also following his passing, I went through some pretty difficult health challenges of my own. I think in my effort to just be strong, I had a daughter at that time who was almost 10 when he passed, and just felt like I needed to be strong for her, and I needed to show her that life goes on and that we still have hope. And so I kept pushing forward and kept looking ahead and kept trying to, just keep on moving. And I took up running as a way to kind of deal with my grief, which I think was not a bad thing, but I took it a little bit too far, and I was running all the time, and I was, training for marathons all the time. I kind of just really, really got into it. And it came to a point where, I was literally and metaphorically using running to outrun my grief. And I got to a point where I just burned out. I wound up with adrenal fatigue, leaky gut. I think all of the emotional stress of not dealing with my grief, and then all of the physical stress, what I was putting on my body. And even though I was interested in health, actually my interest in health started before I lost my husband. And I think I probably ate better than the general American, public eats, but I still wasn't eating all that healthy. And so I think that probably also contributed to all the physical issues I started having. Still was eating quite a bit of sugar and it wasn't as healthy as I could be, but I wound up with adrenal fatigue, leaky gut, all kinds of digestive issues. And so I know that going through that and coming out on the other side and having to work on my own health definitely was another thing that brought me to where I am today. And writing about health and really wanting to write about health in a holistic way, because it does involve all of us: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. So definitely that, losing him and then having to find out who I was, and also going through a lot of the physical health stuff, definitely was a defining time in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you had to do a lot of work, but were you aware that you had to do the work, or was it more reacting to what was happening? Were you aware that you had to, shift something, or did it come when you finally got to that adrenal fatigue and you got to the leaky gut and the unhealthy, that you realized, oh wow, there's some more going on than just health?
Yeah, I don't think, if you've experienced a loss like that, you kind of live in this numb state for a while. You're just kind of going through the motions. You're doing what you have to do to kind of get through each day. So I knew there were some things I wasn't facing, but I didn't know how much I was avoiding until my body said, all right, this is it. We can't do this anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Which is what will happen if we don't deal with things. Our body will wake us up to the issues. So
Out the warning signs.
Yeah.
They're usually pretty big ones.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think your biggest obstacle was, either internally or externally, other than you had this big loss? What did you really have to overcome?
Oh, it's probably a broken record. I'm sure a lot of people say this, but fear. At that time especially, I got married when I was still in college. I was pretty young. I was 21. And I had never really lived on my own. I lived in a college dorm. And then I got married while I was still in college. I moved back home and transferred schools and got married. And then, went right to my husband's home. He already had a house. And so I never really had been alone. And so there were a lot of things I feel like I didn't learn just because I went from one household to another household. I always had someone there. I wasn't, really all that independent. So fear of being alone was a big thing for me, and fear of all the responsibilities that fell on my shoulders after I lost him, and then I was a single parent and caring for a household and vehicles and, whatever else, bills. So yeah, that was probably at that time, fear of being alone. But I tend to, just a lot of the things that have happened in my life, have contributed to me being a person who does deal with fear a lot, whether it's fear of rejection or, fear of being alone, or fear that I am not going to be able to do something or do it well, or yeah. So fear has been a big obstacle in my life, in many different situations.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you realize that in order for you to have the life you wanted, in order for you to get healthier and all that, that you had to do some inner work? That's my dog, by the way.
Oh. Well, I think probably the biggest thing was just that physically I couldn't handle a lot, so I had to stop and slow down. But even more so recently with working on the book and kind of, even though losing my husband and being on my own and kind of changing the trajectory, I think started the process and getting me to where I am now. I really feel like God has even more so grown me in the last few years as I have dealt with my grief, getting married again, and, making that new relationship work. And now I'm losing, I lost your question.
When did you realize that you had to do inner work? That that there was more to overcoming the fears,
right.
and overcoming the fears, but something had to change internally?
Right. I think the biggest thing, because even though I was learning lessons along the way, just in the last like 2 or 3 years, I think the biggest shift for me happened when I realized that actually my biggest fear is that my life will not matter, that I will not have lived out my purpose. And so that is what really started me looking at what am I called to do. And I do feel like a long time ago, God told me that when you look at the parts of the body, Christ says we all play a different role in the body of Christ. I remember God telling me very clearly a long time ago that I am the heart. So I have a real heart especially for helping women. But that definitely, feeling like, reaching that point where I thought it would be worse for me to not step into who I'm called to be and push past that fear, than, myself be stopped by all the other fears in my life.
Wow.
So that is what really has inspired me to keep on moving forward. And as I have focused more on my calling, it isn't so much now that I'm operating from a place of fear. I think the closer I've grown in my relationship with God, the more I want to be the woman that He wants me to be out of love for Him, not out of fear anymore. So I love it that He's changed that desire of my heart. I'm no longer operating from a place of I should, all of these feelings of, what I should be doing with my life and how it should be run. But instead focusing on I want to, and I choose to because I love Him and He knows what's best for me. So that was the biggest shift.
I love that. And I think I love that the most about your journey is that, it's not just about you achieving a goal or you going and being something, or it's like all encompassing. It is the health aspect, it's the mind aspect, and the spiritual aspect. And I think there are so many women out there when they embark on a journey, right? Their journey is, I want to be CEO of this company, or I want to be an author, or I want to be a coach, or I want this job. And it becomes that to-do list, that active physical to-do list to get there, that they forget that everything plays a part. And I think that a lot of people, sometimes spirituality doesn't take priority, and I think not encompassing that, not adding that in. I mean, that is the key piece, right? I love that about your journey, because you really embrace, God's purpose for you and lead through that. Was
Mhm.
that always, was your journey with God and your spiritual journey always that healthy, always that strong?
Mm. No. I did grow up in a Christian home. Faith has always been a part of my life, but definitely, I think like most of us, I have been through dry spells where I didn't feel as close. Um, and sometimes when you're going through those really difficult times, like when my husband, before he died of cancer, he was sick for almost 2 years. And so watching him go through that and, caregiving with him, it's in those moments where you don't feel it so much. You don't feel that closeness. And maybe a part of me was afraid to feel it, because I know there were a lot of times where I felt like I had to be the strong one. I couldn't allow myself to get too emotional about things because I might completely fall apart. Um, so I think a part of me was even scared of touching on that emotional piece. So I haven't always felt the closeness, but in those times, it's been really helpful to at least be able to know in my mind to cling to things, say, okay, well, I know this to be true. Um, I know that I can hold on to this promise, even if I can't feel it right now, even if everything feels horrible, I know it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So sometimes it's more of a just reminding yourself when things are hard, and it isn't always feeling it. But I have been putting more of a real focused effort on spending time with him. And I think that's been really helpful over the last couple of years too, where it is more of a relationship. It is more of, I feel more of a connection. It is more emotional because I'm aware of him throughout the day, because I put a focused effort on that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing when you make that little switch
Mm-hmm.
and you put more of the effort, how much your life transforms. I mean,
Right.
I same thing. I kind of fell off the spiritual wagon a bit, got back on. Then the more I grow in it, the more gifts I find. Not just like the physical gifts, but growing as a person, growing, feeling it, being more confident, being less fearful, less. I struggle with anxiety, and like my anxiety ebbs and flows based off of how much I turn to God for things and remember what he says and remember what he promises. Has that helped with your fear and your anxiety?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things that I probably, I feel like has just become more of a natural part of my life. And it's one of the things I love about what you're doing is joy. You were talking before about how women have these to-do lists, and, we're told we can have it all. And I think we can even, even just in our calling, I think about that. I want to have it all in my calling. I want to live out fully what I meant to live out. But I think sometimes we get so stuck in the doing and the pushing and the going that we forget that we can enjoy it. We can enjoy the journey, that there's joy in it, that there's joy sometimes not in all of the work, but there are moments and there are people that bring us joy. And so, yeah, that's definitely been something that I feel like's been a bigger part of my life. And I love that you are kind of reminding us through your work to be looking for the joy and to be creating that life that's true to us, so that we can experience more joy.
Yeah, because life is not a destination; it's a
Mm,
journey, and that we're meant
right.
to enjoy it and grow and love the process. But we get so stuck on that. I need to be something better than I am now, not realizing that we're perfect the way we are. Not
Right.
realizing that we are enough, we were made enough, we were created to be enough, but we always want to be something we're not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that we don't have to wait until that day to enjoy it. I used to be that kind of thinker. Okay, when things calm down, or when I reach this spot, then everything's going to feel better, and I'm going to be able to take a breath and relax and realize, no, that needs to be sprinkled throughout the whole journey. The
Yes.
joy needs to be there, the peace, the love. It's not all about the pushing and striving.
Yeah, I always remember my great aunt. I was telling her about something I wanted, and I really wished this would happen. And she goes, "Don't wish your life away." And that always stuck with
Oh,
me, because I was always wishing for the next job, wishing for the next promotion, wishing for the next relationship, and she's like, you're going to wish your life away, and all of a sudden you're going to get to the end and you never enjoyed it because you were waiting for the next thing, and there never is a next thing, right? There's always a next thing, so there's never like an ending to it. And I went years with seeking joy, feeling like I didn't know what it was, but it really was, I didn't know who I was, and I didn't have a relationship. I didn't have a spiritual relationship. So I was seeking something that didn't really exist. Yeah.
That's probably harder for those of us that do feel that push and drive to accomplish things. Yes. To be able to stop and smell the roses now and then, right? Because we're always like looking ahead. What's next? What's next? And I know if my schedule has any wiggle room in it, I try to fill it with something.
Yeah, just sitting still. I was just recently talking about how I feel guilty if I built this life so I had more wiggle room, but then how guilty I feel if I'm just sitting outside with my dog. It's like I should be doing something. I can't just be sitting around. I'm so lazy. And I was like, wait a minute, this is the life I wanted. And I'm sitting here telling myself I'm too lazy. Yeah, it's amazing. So what do you think along your journey, because you've had quite a journey, ups and downs, what do you think your biggest saving grace was?
My biggest saving grace. I think my faith, just because it's always been something I could cling to. Like I was saying before, even at times where I didn't really feel it, it was always there. So that was probably, and then just the way it has changed so much, even in just the last few years, because I finally embraced it. I knew it was there, I would read scripture sometimes or pray, whatever, but it isn't until I really truly embraced it and really, I guess, marinated in it more that I just like, this is the life I want. Yeah. I don't want anything else.
Wow. I mean, you had to go through the hard road and the struggles to get there.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, because you're really happy where you are now. So tell us, what was, you talked about the dream of writing a book. And you had that years ago. Was that a consistent dream? Like through all the struggles that you went through, was that something on your mind still sitting there? Or was it something that popped back up when you finally kind of came out to who you are right
now? I have thought about it for many, many years, but I never really knew what I was going to write about. And I remember when I was younger thinking, oh, I don't know enough. I haven't experienced life enough. Who's going to want to, hear from me? Who's going to learn anything from me and what I've been through? And I have to tell you, you have to be a little careful when you start thinking that way, because God will start giving you experiences. Some of them are not easy, let me tell you. That's right. That's right. If you ask for growth, you better watch out. So definitely it's been something that I've wanted to do, but I never really knew what the subject was going to be. I knew I was passionate about health, but then in 2016, and into 2017, I earned my health coaching certification, and then went into life coaching as well. And so even though I was always interested in health, that became more of a passion of mine, and I went ahead and followed that, even though I was also doing some other schooling. And also at the same time, as I've been kind of on this personal healing journey and getting closer in my relationship to God, that has also been a real passion of mine. So I really got to thinking about health and my faith, and how do these two passions merge? And really, if, for those of us that do have a faith, if we are, fully living out our faith, it should affect our health too. And it's so often, when we're in church, I think we focus a lot on, our mind and our heart, how we behave, but we don't talk a lot about health. And so I really wanted to kind of bring that piece out, because really our faith should be a part of all of our, life, not just the way we behave toward other people and the way that we think about things, but it really should impact all of us. And so I thought, there's a need for that message. And so even though I knew for a long time that I wanted to write, and I've journaled for a long time, I didn't really know what I was going to write about until last year. Yeah.
When all the pieces fell into place.
Yes. And I had maybe at that point I had enough of a story, because before I felt like I didn't have much of a story. And after some of the things I've been through, I now have a story. Thank you, God.
You do. I mean, you do, and you have a story in terms of the health part that so many of us go through, but don't ever get. A lot of us don't get, like for me, don't get the answers or the healing or the results because there's not all the pieces together, right? If you get sick, you get adrenal fatigue, or you get leaky gut, or you get whatever it is. You go to the doctor, maybe you get some medicine, some guidance, but faith is never talked about. In fact, until you wrote this book, until you started talking about it, never thought to look in the Bible. Never thought, because you think you pray to God about your health, but you never think about that whole conversation that already happens, that he's already talked about, that, and how it plays a role. We're so into just the proteins, the carbs, the counting, all of that, the sugars, but your book talks about the mind. Your book talks about your mindset. It talks about God. It talks about the macro and the micro, nutrients and all that, but it's all together. And it really is true health, the whole entire piece of it.
Yeah. There was the comment I was going to make on that, and I'm trying to remember now. It came and it went, which happens to me sometimes. Oh, yes. Okay. So, and I talk about this in the book, but I got to really thinking about, with the passions of health and faith, I got to thinking about, one of the verses that we hear all the time is, that you're a temple of the Holy Spirit, right? And so that's kind of where my quest to learn more about how our faith impacts our health, where it started. There's not a ton in the Bible that tells you about, what to eat and what not to eat, and, what diet to be on and all those things, right? Which, by the way, none of us is a particular diet. We're all individual people. So, and I talk about that in the book too. But that verse about being a temple really is what started my search. And so I thought, okay, well, if I'm supposed to be a temple and I really want to live out my faith, that means I need to be a temple that can be used. So what does that mean? What does my temple need to be able to do? My body, what does my body need to be able to do to live out this faith, to be living in integrity with my faith? And so that's really where the search started. And I grew so much writing that book. And the last, and I know I'll explain more about the book, I'm sure, here in a bit, but I had most of the book written before the title came to me. I was on a run one day and I feel like the Holy Spirit was like, here you go. And I was like, oh, that's it. And I didn't have anything to write with, so I'm running along and I'm trying to repeat it in my head over and over until I could get to the car and write it down.
I'm not prepared. Does it come to
Running is a great time to, get inspiration. But sometimes there's that like, oh, I wish I had something with me to record on. But when I got the inspiration for the title and the 4 pillars of health that I talk about in the book, I hadn't written on all that much on one of the pillars. So then I had to go back and do a lot of research for that one. And that I grew so much in that process. So,
yeah.
I just was going to say, so, I've wanted to write for a long time, but it was interesting too, how even though I kind of knew the subject and I knew where to start, it's like the whole process, and even, tacking on those extra, I think it was 5 or 6 chapters at the end. I grew so much in that process and I didn't expect that. It really changed me writing the book.
So it's therapeutic for you, but it's going to be good for making an impact on so many lives too.
I sure hope so. Yeah. Every time I sat down to write, I just prayed that he would give me the words. And I keep on praying that the women that need to hear this message, that this book will get into their hands.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, when we're in that, and I'm reading a book in a small group at church, and it talks about the middle, right? That you have the beginning of a journey or, whatever adventure you're on, you have the ending, but it's the middle where we struggle most. And we forget, we get so stuck in things aren't going right. I don't feel good. I don't, this happened. I lost all my money. You're so focused in the negative that you can't even see that whatever you're going through right here is preparing you for something big. So all of that, those health issues that you had and the struggling and even that grief that you were going through, if you didn't go through that, you wouldn't have this to give to the world and to make an impact on other lives. And I think, I'm sure you had no idea while you were laying in bed with no energy and, you had the leaky gut issues and you're running yourself, into the ground because you get that obsession of running because it feels therapeutic, that you don't even realize that that journey is leading you to something amazing.
Right. At the time, it just felt like everything was kind of stripped away because, I lost my husband. And then running became a new identity for me after that. I discovered that not only was it helpful to like work out the negative emotions, it's a good stress reliever, but I also discovered that I'm pretty good at it. I'm pretty fast. And so I started running farther and faster. And so it really kind of became a part of my identity. And then that was taken away because I couldn't run it, once I started having some of these health issues. And so it really got to the point where I kind of, the things that I was building my identity on weren't there anymore. And so I kind of had to go back to basics and say, okay, God, who am I then? It's just you and me now. Like all the stuff has been taken away. And another thing that happened during the time that I was running a lot and after I lost my first husband, I was in a relationship for a couple of years that really was not the right relationship for either of us, but I was afraid to be alone. Like I said, fearful girl, right? I eventually, we even got to the point where we were engaged. And so I also wound up letting that relationship go too. So it was like a stripping away of everything. And then it was like, okay, it's just you and me, God. How do I rebuild? And that's really hard because I love to be in control. I mean, I like to know, I like to know the course. I want to know what the next steps are. Walking into the unknown is not easy for me. But that's kind of what I had to get to.
Yeah.
And to get to that point, okay, this is where I am. How do we rebuild? And even without all of these other things, who am I? Who do you want me to be?
Yeah. So who are you now?
Who am I now? Ooh, that's a great question. I'm just a woman that wants to live out God's calling in my life. I want to live out my true purpose. Yeah. And it's so strange to be at this point now where I'm willing to say, okay, I'm putting it in your hands. I mean, sometimes I try to pull it back a little bit and I'll say, are you sure? And, but ultimately, that's what matters most. Just knowing at the end of the day, I have him and I just want to be living out what he wants me to be doing.
That sounds so freeing.
It is.
To a place like, your energy change, talking about what you went through and all of that. And then there was just like a sigh when you mentioned it, like, just like, I just want to live out my purpose like that. I think that's all what we're all seeking is that moment where we're like, I'm here and I cannot worry about it anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's tough because it means just handing him the reins. And I apologize, it's getting darker. The weather keeps shifting outside, like it's sunny, and then it's so hopefully you can still see me. I can see my screen's a little dark, but yeah, definitely that it is really freeing. And for someone who is coming, who has always been fearful of what's going to happen and fearful of change and liking to be in control, it's so weird to hear myself say this, but yeah, there is a lot of freedom in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't want to go back. You're like, no, this is where I want to stay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all of the times that I tried to hold the reins and I tried to control everything, I didn't have the peace and the joy that I have now.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's great. It's honestly, in a way, it's like the simplest thing ever. We make life hard, but it's just really simple to let go of the fear and let go of the worrying and the reins and just connect and try to be in alignment with what you're supposed to do. And the path just kind of paves its own way in a way, just once you just say, you know, turn to God or universe or whoever, you know, whatever your faith is, and you just ask for the guidance. It's like I was talking last night about it's like God's sitting up there and he's like, you can try this on your own. I'm gonna sit here. And once you turn to me, then I'm gonna have, you know, like I always like look picture him in like a recliner, like a lazy boy. You think you can do this on your own? Sure, go ahead. I'll be right here.
Yeah, I love that. There's that, but I'll be here when you need me, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. It is simple, but it isn't easy.
No. Yeah. Exactly. It's not. It's not.
A lot of things in life are that way. They're simple, but it's so hard for us to just let things be.
You know, as you said, be careful what you ask for because you want it, but in order for you to get it, it's kind of like that opposites. Like you have to experience what you don't want in order to really go for what you really want, right? You have to experience some of those hard times and those struggles. I remember being so miserable, I just lay on the floor and do nothing, and it was like the biggest sacrifice, like and not sacrifice, but like surrender. Like I've got nothing else to give. I'm done. I don't know what you want from me. And that's when my life changed, when I completely surrendered and said, this ain't it. This is not joy. There is no joy in this. And that's when, oh, okay, here's a new path for you. Thanks. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, and you're going through that experience now, you know, it's giving you the tools to help other women experience joy as well, which is awesome.
And I didn't know that was my purpose, right? The same with you didn't know what your purpose was until you experienced it yourself, and you're like, okay, I hear you loud and clear. This is what I want. This is what I'm meant to do. And that moment when you realize that is like the most beautiful moment. Like you just feel like, oh, I got this then. I know exactly what I need to do. And then now you have this true health book. And I just love it. I love it because it's a really unique and new way of looking at it, or just in a way that's all together in one book, right? Because when you go and you look up, you know, what should I eat or how do I approach health? I mean, there's books on this topic and this topic and this topic, but yours embodies everything. It embodies like, I love it's about you loving yourself and you and your relationship with God and how you need all of those pieces. And I don't think even in school we're ever taught that your mind affects your health, and how you view yourself affects your health, and your spiritual journey affects your health. So that I love that it encompasses everything that we are.
Yeah, and our physical health affects our mind too. You know,
Yeah.
it is all connected. I mean, I'm sure you experienced that when you were, you know, dealing with some of your health issues, and especially the gut issues. They really affect your mind. I mean, you get the brain fog, and it's hard to think straight, and it can leave you feeling depressed. And so it is all tied together. And if you're, you know, falling short in one area, or you're not taking care of one area, it's going to impact the other areas.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I suffer with, I still have leaky gut, and I have some autoimmunes, and I have a lot of food allergies. And that gut health actually affects my anxiety attacks. It affects my, like, it honestly really does affect if I'm veering towards a positive frame of mind versus a negative frame of mind. Because when you feel crappy, you don't really want to be thinking, the world's amazing. Like you're just, you know, and it affects your energy. And if you don't have the energy, then you can't go out, you can't live your purpose without your energy. And I think I love that you realize that, or at least are sharing that with the world, that you can, your body is your temple, and it gives you the ability to fulfill your purpose. Well, if you're in bed because you have no energy, then you can't help anybody in the world. You can't make an impact.
Right. And I do think that sometimes God can use those instances. I mean, sometimes people have really difficult physical challenges, and that can be a ministry. They can minister to other people through it. So I definitely don't want to say that, but I think a lot of us just sabotage our health. We just don't take care of ourselves, even if we're not dealing with something major like that. And that really limits what we can do and how we can impact the world.
Yeah. What's the biggest message in the book?
The biggest message in the book. I have the 4 pillars, but the one that I'm most excited about, and the one that I think is kind of the crux of it all, and leads us into health, is having that relationship with the Holy Spirit. And I don't know if, I was thinking about this before we talked, and I meant to mention this, but when we started, that, I am a Christian woman. Obviously, if you've listened this far or watched this far, you can tell that from what we've shared. And, I don't know, if everyone watching this is probably not going to believe what I believe, but I do hope that, still, I think you're going to get some wisdom from what, we're talking about, and even what's in the book too. But I really think that relationship helps us to become more intuitive with who we are, and, puts us in that place of peace and joy. And it becomes less about who we are according to the world standards and what we eat, and all these other things, and wanting all of these things. Like, I don't have a pull towards unhealthy foods now, because I feel whole and complete in that relationship. So, like, I don't have the emotional eating. I don't feel like I have to look like other people, because I know, because of that relationship, that I'm okay in who I am. And these perceived flaws that I have, that's a part of, I was intentionally made that way, and I'm embracing it. And I don't, society says we all should be looking like this, and buying these things, and wearing these kinds of clothes, and doing these kinds of diets. And one of the things I hope that people get from this book is, who says? This is a way for them to make money. This is how manufacturers make money on us, making us unhappy with who we are. And I really want to change that. I want women to step into the freedom of who they are, and celebrate who they are, and know that they're okay the way that they are.
It's so true. I mean, it doesn't matter what shape you are, what size you are. Like, you can still do the work you're meant to do, to have fun. You can still laugh. You can still enjoy life. But the magazines have limited, and the media has limited. Well, you have to look like this. And that, I think a lot of us have grown up with body image issues, and we're not exercising in a healthy way. We're exercising to look a certain way, as opposed to exercising to function better.
Right. Yeah, I really, my focus with this book is health, health in all areas of your life. So mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. I mean, it all plays a role. And my definition of health is to run optimally in all of these areas. It's not about being skinny. It's not about, some of the other things that the world tells us, this is what health should look like. And I love what you were just saying about, feeling like you have to exercise to do this, to look this way or that way. It's really just about, experiencing that health that we're running on, apologize, that we're running on like all cylinders in all areas, and that we just feel amazing.
It's like functional. It's all about
exactly,
and be exactly who you want to be, have the energy you need and want, or optimal, opposed to eating because it's a fad diet. Like, this is what's popular now, this is the trend. Instead, eating because it works for your body, that it creates that optimal health for you. Yeah.
And not doing it out of guilt, or shame, or, whatever, because I should be doing it. We got to stop shitting all over ourselves, right? I think a lot of us approach health that way. Well, I should eat this apple instead of this cookie, or, whatever it is, rather than, just focusing on, getting to experience feeling amazing.
Yeah.
So it's coming from a totally different perspective, a perspective of freedom versus a perspective of, the shoulds.
It's bringing it back to you personally, as opposed to, and I think I think we all we're so built differently that you might not be affected and really need certain foods, but I might not need those foods, but I need other foods instead, more of other foods instead. So it's really coming back to you. I love the book because it comes back to you need to know yourself and what's best for you internally, both in your mind, your body, and in your relationship with the universe or God, whoever whatever your spiritual beliefs are. But it's all personal to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about it, because when people read it, they should read it from, this is me. This is what I need to do for me, and tune out some of what's on the magazines and what are the celebrities eating and dieting and what they're doing, what their fad, exercise routines are. But come back to, hey, if you can't eat that food, you can't eat that food. So you don't eat that food because it doesn't make you feel good.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you most proud of with the book?
I'm proud that I actually wrote one. Finally, after 10, it was like over 10 years.
What are you hoping women walk away with?
I want to give women freedom. Like you were just saying, it is about each of us individually. And I want women to be able to ignore all the messages that they're seeing, that society is giving us about what they should look like, what health should look like for everybody, and really step into the freedom of like being okay about figuring it out for yourself. This is an individual journey, which is really freeing. I know it can be a little bit scary too, because sometimes we just want someone to tell us here's the rules, X, Y, Z, but it's so freeing not to have rules and to be, one of the things too that I really encourage in the book, and I really encourage women in their health journey, is to just be curious. It's okay not to do it all perfectly. I think when we have all of the blame and we have all of the shame heaped on ourselves and we beat ourselves up because we made an unhealthy choice, it's so much more demotivating to keep moving forward than if we just step back and say, okay, so I did that. What was that about? Let's get a little curious, and what can I learn from it and move forward with? That's so much more motivating in our journey than beating ourselves up all the time. So I really want to give women freedom, and I really want to help them turn away from the world's messages and just really step into what's true for them.
I love that. I do. And I think that's what we're all craving at this point. I think a lot of us are just tired. We don't want to read the magazines anymore. We don't want to see the airbrushed bodies. Right. We don't want to know what the next thing we should eat. That freeing, we don't want the guilt anymore.
Right.
I think it's time. I do. Yeah. So when does this book drop? When does it launch?
I don't have an exact date, but I'm shooting for October 8th. The company that I'm working with, there's not a way for me to say, okay, I want it available on this date, but that's the date we're shooting for. So it should be on or before October 8th. Yeah, it's just a couple weeks out. Yeah, and I'm actually running a 7-day free health challenge in anticipation of the book, which will start on October 1st. And so that's, there's like a little sign up bar on my website if people go there, and I have some ads running right now, so people will see that. But just kind of a fun way to experiment with some new recipes and, what a healthy lifestyle can look like. And then I'll be sharing each day just a short tip on health. And that's for free. I mean, aside from buying your own groceries, but that'll be leading up to the book. So so I'm excited about that. That's coming out as well.
That's so exciting. And they can buy it on Amazon?
Yes, the book's going to be on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble. And then after that, whatever other companies decide to pick it up from there. But it'll be definitely on those too.
So fun. Yay. That's so exciting. I will be buying that right on October 8th.
All right. Well, I'll be posting about it. So if you are following me online or following my blog posts, I'll be sharing about it. As soon as it's out, I'm gonna be like, hey guys, because it may come out before the 8th. I don't know for sure, but I'll definitely be letting people know.
So one final question for you. Or maybe two final questions actually. So what tips, give me 3 tips that you would share with women out there that are embarking on a journey to transform their lives and go after their dreams. What would you think top 3 tips would be?
Good question. I would say tip number 1 is to set aside some quiet time every morning. I think too often we start our days with, rolling out of bed, checking our phones, getting on social media or checking emails, and then immediately we're at the mercy of other people's agendas. So I would say tip number 1, quiet time. Even if you don't have a lot of time in the morning, 5 minutes. And, for myself personally, that's when I love to, pray and I journal. But that really gets you in the right mindset and it sets your day off. And also, when you talk about reaching for our dreams, it's hard to really put a focus on your dreams if immediately you're just, responding to everybody else. You're not giving yourself that clear focus for the day. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, well, this is something that's, very much a part of what I do because of my faith, but, and a lot of people say this, a lot of Christians say this, be in the Word. But it's amazing to me, I used to think as I was growing up that, reading the Bible, it's such a chore. And it's amazing now as my relationship with the Holy Spirit has changed, like how much of it kind of jumps out at me. And I see new things all the time in the old stories. And I am so uplifted by doing it. So I would say for those of you that want to strengthen your faith, definitely that would be my tip number 2. And you can do that right around the same time that you have your quiet time in the morning, if that works out. So I would say that's my tip number 2. And then tip number 3, I'll just repeat what I said earlier about, just trading in that judgment for curiosity, like being okay with being on the journey. None of us is perfect. We're always becoming who it is that we're meant to be. We're never going to just reach that and stop growing. So be gentle with yourself, show yourself grace, treat yourself like you would, your best friend. If you wouldn't say something to your best friend, don't say it to yourself. Be okay with learning from mistakes. We all make them. No one's perfect. So I would say that's tip number 3.
I love that. I love, that's my favorite part of doing these interviews is those tips. And what I'm learning along the way is they're all very similar. They're all about you and getting to know you and having that quiet time, and journaling comes up all the time, gratitude, praying, meditating. I think when you're embarking on a journey, right, you're going after a dream, you want to transform your life, people think it's so complicated, but really it's so easy because steps are so easy. They're just about getting to know you more, spending more time with you to get where you're going, to get over those fears.
Yeah, if we can give ourselves that space to think, give ourselves some downtime throughout the day, those dreams they're going to pop up. Our passions can't be silenced. They keep showing up. We keep having reminders. There are things that I think about over and over, and I think, maybe I need to be paying more attention to that. But if we don't quiet down all the other noise, it's really hard to get in tune with it. So like you said, it does show up. It does, these dreams will pop up. We'll have inclinations to certain things, but if we aren't giving ourselves the time to focus on them, it's going to be difficult to reach them.
Yeah, if it's meant for you, it won't pass you by. But if you're not listening or watching for the opportunities,
right,
then it's just gonna it'll stay there. It won't go away, but you're also not going to move towards it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So your book is going to be published next month. What's next on your path?
Well, I definitely have ideas for book number 2, so I'm really excited about that, and definitely feeling prompted to keep writing. So that's another thing on my path. And then also I'm in the middle of earning my master's in counseling right now. So I'm about to start an internship, in the new year. And so I'm really excited about that new ministry as well. I'm really excited about what I'm going to learn there. So, and I think those experiences will help me in writing too. So.
Absolutely. Wow. So you are multi-passionate.
Yes.
And I love that because you don't just stop at writing books, right? You're going to get your master's. You became a health coach, and I think that's important because people think they need to choose one thing.
Right.
You have to. You can be whatever you want, whatever you're called to do or you're passionate about. You can do it. You can do it all.
Yeah, and I used to think that too. Like you had to focus on like, oh, I had one thing needed to define me. But the difficult thing is sometimes we don't know and we're interested in several. So my thought is chase all of them and see if one rises to the surface.
Yeah.
You know, that's okay. It's part of that being curious. You know, you don't have to know. You don't have to have it all figured out.
And you learn a lot about yourself along the way every time you try something new. Yeah.
Right.
And you might not have to choose, right? You could kind of do it. You can be an author and you can, you know, be a coach and be a therapist. You can do it all. You know, you don't have to choose one. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it might grow into some other new role that's not out there yet. That's a combination of everything. So that's kind of exciting too, to think about. Maybe it'll look like something totally, completely different than what most people are doing.
I love that. You can create your life.
Yeah, that's right.
To the options that are out there. Love that. Well, this was lovely. I'm so glad that you shared your story with us, and I'm so glad I got to know you. I'm so glad that the world gets to know you now. I'm super excited about your book. I think this is one of those books that you know, would be good to read with friends, you know, to encourage and support each other, even though it's an individual journey, but that accountability. I think it's a good gift for people to your friends.
Okay. It'll be available before Christmas, so if you know of any friends that could benefit, I'm okay with you getting copies for them.
Right? It is. I mean, I think it's a good way of showing that, hey, I support your journey and I support your health and your well-being, so you can be all that you're meant to be. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. And so where can everybody find you and follow you?
Yeah. Before I say that, I want to say thank you. I really enjoyed our time together today too. It gave me a chance to get to know you a little bit better, so it was great.
Yeah.
My website is thetruehealthlife.com. And again, I'm doing that 7-day challenge. So if that's something that you want to join for free, there is a little bar at the top. You can click on that. And then on Facebook, I'm at The True Health Life. That's my Facebook page. So if you want to follow me there. And on Instagram, I'm at true.health.life.
Very good. Yeah, so go follow her. I love her motivational posts on Instagram and Facebook all the time, and I love watching your journey. She shares her running journey and all the fun recipes and what she's making. I like to follow her recipes too. So, yeah.
I'm glad you enjoy it.
So much. Thank you all for joining the True Joy Revolution. We're so excited that you're here, and we hope you get inspired by these interviews to go live the life that you were meant to live and live life your own way.